In a land called Greece, where the hills were green and the forests were thick, there was a special animal called the Ceryneian Hind. It was different from other animals because it was a magnificent female red deer. This deer was so famous that people talked about it for a very long time. Eurystheus, who lived in a palace not too far away from Ceryneia, wanted Hercules to bring him this special deer. Before we continue with the story, let's answer two important questions. What is a hind? And where is Ceryneia? A hind is just a female red deer. Ceryneia, on the other hand, is a town in Greece. It's about 50 miles from Eurystheus' palace in Mycenae. Now, let's hear about Hercules and his adventure to catch the Ceryneian hind. This incredible creature, the Ceryneian hind, was truly mesmerizing to behold. Its golden antlers were like the crowns worn by kings from long ago. They rose gracefully from its head and were a true masterpiece of nature's artistry. They sparkled as brilliantly as the sun. But that's not all that made this hind special. Its hooves had a shiny, bronze-like appearance, almost like they were made of precious metal. When it walked, the sound it made was like heavenly music, a beautiful combination of strength and grace. It moved with such a graceful and divine elegance, as if it were dancing on the air itself. The skin of the Ceryneian hind was a wonder of nature. It was described as unquat, dappled. Unquat, which means it had beautiful patterns that seemed to move and shine as if touched by the gods. It was like a living painting of pure beauty. But the hind's remarkable appearance wasn't the only reason it was famous. People all over Greece admired the Ceryneian hind for its incredible speed. It was faster than any other animal, making it impossible for regular people to catch. Trying to chase after this creature was like trying to catch the wind itself, a task that was almost impossible and had left many brave individuals feeling defeated. But what made the Ceryneian hind truly unique among all creatures was its extraordinary ability to breathe fire. Yes, you read that correctly. This mystical being, with all its beauty and elegance, could exhale flames, a phenomenon that both scared and fascinated those who saw it. In this world of myths and wonders, the hero Heracles was given a difficult task by King Eurystheus of Mycenae for his third labor. Heracles, famous for his incredible strength and unstoppable determination, had to capture the Ceryneian hind and bring it back alive. This challenge would push even his legendary skills to their limits. Capturing the Ceryneian hind was the third task given to the demigod hero Heracles by King Eurystheus, as part of the labors of Heracles' story. Eurystheus thought it would be impossible for Heracles to catch the hind because it was incredibly fast. He also believed that capturing this sacred animal would make the goddess Artemis very angry and could lead to Heracles' death. So, Heracles set off on a journey that took him deep into the heart of Ceryneia, a land full of old secrets and wild nature. He soon realized that catching this amazing creature would not only need his physical strength, but also his cleverness and patience. The Ceryneian hind was a symbol of how magnificent nature could be and a reminder of the endless wonders of the ancient world. As the hero Heracles set out on his journey to capture the legendary Ceryneian hind, He soon realized that this creature was not just a physical marvel. It also symbolized the connection between nature and mythology, showing how powerful storytelling was in ancient times. In Greek mythology, there's an intriguing story about how the Ceryneian Hind came to be and its significant encounter with the goddess Artemis. According to a tale passed down through generations, Artemis, the divine huntress and protector of the wilderness, stumbled upon a magnificent herd of 5 Ceryneian hinds. These extraordinary animals were playing near Parisian Hill, a place far from their usual home near the banks of the Etched, black-pebbled Anoris. Artemis, who had a deep connection with all creatures in the wild, was greatly impressed by the unmatched beauty and grace of these hinds. She was so taken by their splendor that she decided to use the power and majesty of 4 of them. She harnessed them with golden bridles to her own golden chariot, creating a breathtaking sight as she rode through the heavens, with her chariot pulled by these divine creatures. However, Artemis, in her wisdom and foresight, intentionally allowed one of the Ceryneian hinds to escape from her control. This wasn't a mistake but a deliberate decision. Like the gods themselves, Artemis had a role to play in the grand plan of fate and destiny. She knew that this specific hind was meant to be a part of a larger story, a task for the great hero Heracles. This escaped Ceryneian hind, now the only one left in its homeland, roamed freely on Ceryneian Hill and sometimes ventured into nearby vineyards. Its presence both amazed and worried the farmers who looked after their grapevines. They would tell stories of a magnificent creature with golden antlers that chased them away from their vineyards, a living symbol of the wild power of nature. So, the scene was set for Heracles' third labor, a heroic adventure that would take him to Ceryneia in search of the elusive Ceryneian hind. Little did he know that his journey would be connected to the plans of Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, and that his encounter with this mythical creature would become a crucial moment in Greek mythology. This would forever etch the legend of the Ceryneian hind in the memories of both mortals and gods. Heracles was a famous hero known for his great strength and clever thinking. He wasn't just strong, he was also very smart. When he wanted to hunt a special deer, called the Ceryneian hind, he knew that it wasn't only about being strong. Heracles understood that he had to think carefully about something important: smell. You see, deer have an amazing sense of smell. Their noses are much better than ours, so if Heracles didn't pay attention to his smell, the deer would know he was coming, and his hunt would be ruined. To help himself understand this, Heracles imagined that his smell was like a big triangle coming out from his body. The farther it went from him, the wider and weaker it became. Heracles knew that when he was hunting in the forest, he had to be very careful about this smell triangle. If he got too close to the deer, he had to be even more careful. Before he went into the woods, Heracles looked at which way the wind was blowing. This was super important. He knew that where he stood was crucial. You might think it's a good idea to have the wind blowing in your face so your smell goes behind you. But Heracles knew that deer also sniff the wind. So, if he stood with the wind in his face, the deer might walk away from him or come closer, smell him from behind, and then go around him in a big curve. That's why Heracles had to be really smart about where he stood when he hunted the Ceryneian hind. A better plan, as Heracles had figured out, was to hunt when the wind was blowing from the side. This way, the wind would not carry his smell directly to the deer. This increased his chances of catching the deer when it was walking across his view. It was all about being smarter than the deer, which had really sharp senses. As Heracles kept trying to catch the Ceryneian hind, he used these ideas carefully. He knew that catching the deer didn't just depend on his strength but also on how well he could trick the deer. He thought about which way the wind was blowing, his smell, and the land he was in at every step of his journey. Heracles traveled all over ancient Greece, starting from a small place called Oinoi. He chased the hind non-stop, but was always just a bit behind. The hind was super fast, so Heracles had to go through forests, across fields, and over hills, which made his hunt even harder, because he had to deal with different kinds of land. Heracles' hunt even took him to a faraway land called Hyperborea, a place full of myths and mysteries, where it was hard to tell what was normal and what was magical. But he didn't give up, and kept chasing the hind, even in this strange world. His journey finally led him to a big mountain, called Artemisius Mountain, which separated Argelis from Mantinea. On this tough and holy land, Heracles didn't stop and kept going, trying to catch the tricky hind. The mountain was steep, and a dangerous cliffs that tested his climbing skills. The thick forests made it even harder to track the deer. Days turned into weeks, and Heracles met people from nearby villages who told him stories about the golden antlered hind that had been causing a lot of trouble. The hind would go into their fields and vineyards, making a big mess. These stories made Heracles even more determined to catch the hind. Even though there were many tough challenges and a sense of magic around the Ceryneian hind, Heracles stayed determined. He got better at tracking and learned how to deal with the tricky deer. It wasn't just about being strong, it was also about being mentally tough. When Heracles went into the wilderness to hunt, he knew he had to be really careful. He stayed away from the hunting area until he was ready to hunt. He knew that if people were in the woods, their smell could scare away everything, even before he got started. A smart deer might avoid an area for a long time if it sensed humans were there. So, Heracles picked a place where deer usually went and waited patiently for them to show up. He used a blind, which was like a hidden spot with walls and screens that made him invisible to the deer. He could see through the screens and shoot arrows without the deer noticing. Heracles practiced shooting through the mesh to make sure he could do it right. It took Heracles a whole year to catch the hind. He used his archery skills to shoot an arrow that hurt the hind just before it could cross the river Ladon. His aim was true, and the Ceryneian hind got injured. Heracles had captured the tricky creature alive, finishing his tough quest with skill and determination. But now, Heracles had a new problem. He had to explain to Artemis and her twin brother Apollo why he had hurt their sacred hind. They really cared about the deer, and might want to take it away from Heracles. Heracles, being honest and well-spoken, told him he had to hurt the hind to catch it, not because he wanted to harm it on purpose. He knew how special the deer was and how it was connected to Artemis in a special way. Artemis was really mad at Heracles because he had tried to hurt her special deer. She was about to take the deer away from him and probably punish him too. But Heracles told her the truth. He explained that he had to do what the oracle and King Eurystheus had ordered him to do, which were the labors. Artemis listened to him and forgave him. She even healed the deer's wound. Heracles then carried the deer alive all the way to Mycenae. Only after Heracles had given this honest explanation and got the blessings from Artemis and Apollo was he allowed to take the Ceryneian Hind to Eurystheus in Mycenae. He had successfully finished his third labor. On his way to Eurystheus, Heracles met Artemis and her twin brother Apollo again. He asked Artemis for forgiveness and told her why he had to capture the deer. Artemis forgave him, but she asked Heracles to set the deer free. Heracles agreed. When Heracles got to Eurystheus' place, he found out that the king wanted to keep the deer for himself. So, Heracles came up with a plan. He told Eurystheus that he should come and take the deer from him personally. The king agreed and started walking towards Heracles and the deer. But Heracles let the deer go a bit too soon on purpose. The deer was super fast and got away, going back to its goddess, Artemis. Heracles told Eurystheus that he hadn't been quick enough to catch it. Eurystheus was really mad and told Heracles that his next task was to catch the Erymanthian boar.